Welcome everyone, happy to have you join me again today. What I am going to share with you is my skincare journey. On the Ask Tracy form on my website, I receive a lot of repeat questions. I also receive a lot of repeat questions on my YouTube commenting as well as other platforms. Well, a reoccurring question that I have received over and over is, what is my skincare journey? Many of you that have followed me for a long time know that I was an acne sufferer. You also know that I have the scars to prove it. So today's video is going to be my whole skincare journey, and I'm going to do a follow-up video to share my current PM skincare routine products and how I use them. This video is going to be somewhat educational as well, but let me just put a disclaimer in. I am certainly not a dermatologist, but I do work under the care of a dermatologist, meaning I have a dermatologist who does see me often enough. I also resource a medical skin spa where I am under the care of nurses. Therefore, I do feel like I am very knowledgeable when it comes to skincare, but like anything, if you are ever in question, you should always go to the expert. The expert would be a dermatologist. So let's get started on my skincare journey. Let me just start out by saying that as a child, I had perfect and beautiful skin, just like everybody else did. Everything changed during my teenage years. I don't have an exact age. I just know that probably when I hit puberty and the hormones were kicking in, I started to experience acne, and it turned into cystic acne. During my high school years, I was treated by a conservative dermatologist that my mom had gotten a referral to from probably people she worked with at the time. I'm not really sure. I do know he was a popular dermatologist in the county that I currently live in, but he was considered a conservative dermatologist. My cystic acne was treated with a variety of different products from topical to oral. Often I was on both a topical and oral medication. I never really had good results. I never had extreme results. Therefore, I was often put on different things. We would try something, it really wouldn't work or clear it up, and then I would be moved to something else. I do want to also chime in that I was heavily into my skincare as a teenager. I believe because I had the acne, I felt that clean skin was very important. So while all my girlfriends would go to sleep at night with all of their makeup on, I was the one that was doing a full-blown skincare routine. And I remember starting this quite young. I'm sure that I was starting to take really good care of my skin probably about the time I started with acne, maybe preteen to teen years. I don't really know the exact times, but I will say even in my high school years when perhaps I may have partied a little bit, my friends would go home, pass out, and I was taking off my makeup. And they had beautiful skin and I was left with all of the acne. Go figure. I also want to share with you that I never popped zits. I never picked at my face. I just never touched my face. I felt like if I was touching my face, I was going to create more oil. So I didn't touch my face. I feel like I was really doing all the right things. Let me also mention that I had excessively oily skin at this time as well. So cystic acne, extremely oily skin, but had a good skincare routine, never touched my face. My diet, on the other hand, was a train wreck. I was on the typical teenage diet: Cool Ranch Doritos, SpaghettiOs warmed up from the can, cottage cheese, and Diet Mountain Dew, Little Debbie snack cakes. That was pretty much my diet during my teenage years. If I had any say on it, if I had any control over it. As far as what skincare did I use, I don't remember what age, but I know at some point in high school, my mom took me to the Clinique counter and I started using one of their systems. I was actually on their number 4 system, which was for oily or acne prone skin. So that is what I used for cleansing my face, and then I would use whatever topical products were prescribed to me by the dermatologist. I'm also going to chime in real quick that I still remember my first time going to the second more luxury or higher end cosmetic line, which was Estee Lauder. So I'd only been to a Clinique counter when I was in high school, but I remember at the age of 19, I was all by myself and I went to the Estee Lauder counter at the store that at the time was called, I believe, Marshall Field's, which is now Macy's. And for those of you that are my age, you probably remember Hudson's. So Hudson's turned into Marshall Field's turned into Macy's. So I'm dating myself here. But anyway, I went to an Estee Lauder counter at the age of 19 and I remember I purchased my very first eye gel. And I have been using an eye cream or eye gel ever since I was the age of 19. I am 47 now. So I think that's really impressive, and I really believe there's power in starting young with your products, and an eye cream would be a great starting point. But we're trailing off, so let's get back on the skincare journey. I can't really say that I can recall exactly when my cystic acne and acne altogether came to somewhat of a screeching halt. I feel like it was probably somewhere in my 20s, and I can't really say I can pinpoint the reason behind it. I just know that there came a point where I no longer really suffered from the cystic acne and I only had an occasional breakout, perhaps when I was getting ready to start my period. I really don't recall, but I still had extremely and excessively oily skin. It was hard to have good makeup application because within hours, everything just looked so greasy, and it's just not an attractive look. Often I felt like my makeup looked really cakey, even if it wasn't, and I think the oily skin just emphasized that. Your pores are more emphasized, everything that goes with oily skin basically. Unfortunately, however, I was left with all of the acne scars to prove my history of cystic acne. Mainly little dips or holes, they call them pock marks, really in the cheek area. Again, I don't know the exact age, but somewhere in my early 30s, I sought after another very popular dermatologist in my county. He was an aggressive dermatologist, unlike the conservative dermatologist that I had during my teenage years. I remember my first visit with this dermatologist, and he looked at my face and he said, "Had I had you as a patient when you were in your teens, you would never have the scars you have today. The problem with your regime when you were a teenager is it wasn't aggressive enough." This particular dermatologist loved the power of Accutane. He expressed to me that this was the big bazooka, and this often is really the only thing that is really going to tackle what I had suffered. Therefore, we did my first round of Accutane, and by golly, did I love it. Yeah, there's some side effects. You do get some drying, but fortunately for me, because I was so excessively oily, I didn't have the dryness that somebody that perhaps has dry skin would have. So I didn't have the really chapped lips that people experienced and the face. I had some of it, but not to the capacity that a lot of people suffer. I loved while I was on Accutane because Accutane is high levels of vitamin A, and your pores shrink so much that your makeup application is incredible. I still remember that while I was on Accutane, I would often have people tell me, "I love how you've been doing your makeup lately. You should do that more often. Normally you just have too much on." And I had not changed anything in my makeup application. It was because I no longer had all of that excessive oil, and my pores were shrinked so much, almost like a baby, that my skin was flawless. Now again, this is while I was on Accutane. I stayed under the care of the dermatologist even after I was done with my Accutane, and I started to get my feet wet a little bit with things like microdermabrasion, glycolic peels. I can't remember again exact ages, but I know this all fell within my 30s. I also had my fifth daughter at about the age of 34, and I believe I did a second round of Accutane after she was born, but it could have been before. Again, I can't really recall, but my guess is it was after she was born. We decided to do a second round of Accutane just to once again combat that oil. Although I really wasn't breaking out, I wasn't really experiencing acne, maybe an occasional breakout, I still had a lot of oil going on. And although that's good for the aging process, it can really wreak havoc on how your face looks with makeup on. If anybody out there has excessively oily skin, I think you know what I'm talking about. You just look like cake face. There's no better way to put it. So nonetheless, we did a second round of Accutane. Again, wonderful results. I loved when I was on it. I was begging to stay on Accutane for life, but that can be taxing on your liver to be on it for that long. So of course they can't do that, but I tell you, I loved when I was on Accutane. It is very results oriented. And I'm just going to chime in again. I am not a skin professional or dermatologist, but if you suffer from acne, I highly, I'm so passionate about encouraging you to go see a dermatologist and bring up the word Accutane. I've had one of my daughters on it while she was in high school. Often they will check and see where you are at growth-wise. You can't really go on Accutane, or from my understanding, which was shared to me by my dermatologist, there's a window you have to watch because evidently it could stunt growth. Therefore, they want to kind of look at your chart from your childhood doctor or your family doctor and kind of see where you're going with growth. If you're slowing down, or you've pretty much came to a screeching halt as far as your growth goes, that would be probably a good time to do Accutane. But again, a good aggressive dermatologist, because if you wait like I did, there's going to be scarring as a result, most likely. Let's fast forward from that period of my life, let's say my mid-30s to now, which again, I'm 47 years old. And let me just chime in that I truly believe that medical grade skincare, aka drug, is where it's at in comparison to something that you could buy over the counter or from a cosmetic company. And I'm going to share a little bit more on that, but let me explain my education and my encouragement that I received from my dermatologist for my skin. And again, you need to work with your own healthcare provider as far as skin goes, or your med spa, but I'm going to share with you what my dermatologist guided me to do and where to put my money. My dermatologist was well aware that I was all about results. I wanted to keep the oil under control. I don't want any more breakouts. He really frowned on me doing any more Accutane at this point, but he knew that I was into aggressive products and procedures. He advised me to put my money in the powerhouse products. Again, this is going to be more of like a drug because it's going to be medical grade versus more of your over-the-counter or your cosmetic lines that come out with their skincare products. He expressed to me that facial cleanser isn't on your face long enough to do anything, so save your money there. Use an over-the-counter drugstore facial cleanser like Cetaphil. That would be a perfect one. He also recommended that I put my dollar in things like retinoids, which is a vitamin A derivative, glycolic acids, peptides, growth factors, antioxidants. These are the products that are going to have a proper pH for your skin. They are also going to offer a higher percentage of active ingredients than what a drugstore or a cosmetic company or even a skincare line that is not medical grade is going to offer. The thing that you have to understand about medical grade skincare versus mainstream or cosmetic companies or drugstore over the counter is because they are considered a drug, they have to go through FDA approval. They are put through tests. They have higher percentage of active ingredients, which puts them in the drug category. The skincare products that you would buy at, let's say, Sephora, Ulta, Walgreens, or through any of your cosmetic companies or department stores, those are not going to be medical grade. They're not considered a drug. They are not going to be as high in your active ingredients. The pH levels aren't monitored as closely as they would if they would be a medical grade. So hopefully that can help some of you. And when I do my PM skincare update, we will talk about and I will show a lot of those options in the drop down box of this video as well as on the corresponding blog post. However, I will have some links to medical grade skincare that you may want to start getting yourself familiar with. Yes, they're going to pack a punch with price, but look what you're paying for. And it just depends on what type of results you're looking for. My dermatologist supports putting your money in the products that can make a big difference. He also said a moisturizer is great, but you can save money there. So save money on your cleanser, which isn't on your skin long enough. And if you have to save money on anything else, save money on your moisturizer, because all of your active ingredients, all of your medical grade skincare is going to come in your serums or products like that. Your retinoid, which is prescription, a glycolic acid, those are all going to be that middle ground. You've got your clean face, now you're going to treat it with your medical grade skincare, then you're going to follow up with a moisturizer, which is where you could save some money because you've already got the active ingredients in there. You just want to make sure you're hydrating your face afterwards. Now, when it comes to some of these medical grade products, you need to work your way up. You don't start out on the highest percentage. You start out on a lower percentage and you work your way up. If somebody were just starting out on a retinoid, you could get an over-the-counter, which Differin now is over-the-counter, and you could get a low dosage working your way up. And then when you have the money saved up, you could work with a dermatologist where now you're going to be prescribed a much higher percentage and it's going to cost you more. I just recently had to fill my prescription on my retinoid and it was $271 out of my pocket. It was originally $500, but after insurance, I was left with $271. But that's important to me. That's the big bazooka. That's going to make the big difference. So let's continue on with the skin journey. I had to chime that on, a little education coming from me to you. So hopefully that can help some of you. But on my skincare journey, so of course I'm mid-30s, my dermatologist puts me on a retinoid. I have been on Retin-A, I have been on Retin-A Micro, I have been on Differin, and I am currently on Tazorac. Again, these are all vitamin A derivatives. I am on the highest percentage of Tazorac that you can use, but I worked my way up to that. Started using a prescription strength retinoid in my mid-30s. So I am over 10 years of using a retinoid, and I truly believe if there is one place and one thing that I would encourage you for aging is a retinoid. Now let me just back up a little bit here, a little history with retinoids. They were originally used for acne, but what they found out in, I don't know if it was the 70s or when they were putting their acne patients on a retinoid to put on their face topically, they were finding out that later on the signs of aging were being diminished as well. So that's where they found out that this is a wonderful product for aging. So retinoids, prescription strength, are great not only for acne, but definitely for aging as well. The other thing that my dermatologist had me start using was a glycolic acid. This was another thing I had to work my way up percentage-wise. I started out on a low dose of glycolic acid, working my way up. What he had me do was alternate in the evening, retinoid, the next night glycolic acid, the next night retinoid, the next night glycolic acid. I still continue with that routine to this day. From there, as money allowed, I did start picking up other active ingredient products, hyaluronic acid products, growth factors, peptides. I also did a lot of masking, peels, different things like that. My dermatologist also shared with me, because my skin was very resistant versus sensitive, in office procedures or treatments that I got done, needed to be at the highest percentage. Somebody with sensitive skin would go with a lower percentage. Somebody with resistant skin can handle a higher percentage, and often you are paying a little bit more for those procedures. I could handle a more deeper laser than, let's say, somebody else can because I have very resistant skin. Often when you are oilier, you do tend to have more resistant skin. That doesn't mean everybody. I'm just saying most of the time. Most of the time. You could have oily skin but have sensitive skin. We're all different, and that is why I believe in the power of working with a dermatologist and a medical skincare expert like I do when I go to Rejuve Avenue Skin Spa. So really that is where I am at today. I still do have oily skin, there's no question. I rarely ever break out. Maybe I'll get a little mark, but I really don't break out. I do have the scars. I have things on my bucket list to potentially do to combat those, but again, my scars are deep, so these are pretty hefty procedures, and they're also costly procedures. My skincare routine is very aggressive. It's very results oriented. I really believe a lot of it has to do with the diet that I am on, which is a healthy, nutritionally, mostly alkaline, not acidic, clean eating, lots of water, lots of herbal teas. I really believe, just like anything, your health starts within, and our skin is our largest organ, so what we are doing in our body is going to show on the outside. I also believe the environmental factors play a big role. Definitely as a child, I had way too much sun. Who didn't? Even as a teenager, I was that person slathering Crisco on me and pouring, Sun-In or lemon juice in my hair. I was that person because at that time we didn't know any different. But once I started to know the damaging effects that UVA rays have on you, which is really what causes sun damage, is UVA rays. And if you want me to talk more about SPF and sunscreen for the face, I'd be happy to do that because I'm pretty knowledgeable on that as well, and a lot of that information came from my dermatologist. I really believe that, once I knew that the sun's rays were damaging, I backed off on things like the tanning bed, which of course I had done. And I believe that I took those steps early enough to salvage a lot of my skin. I'm sure I have some underlying skin damage, and we all know that later in life that will all come out. But protecting yourself from the sun, not necessarily always avoiding, because we need the vitamin D, but protecting your skin from the sun, not smoking, your diet, using the proper products, sleep, lots of water, all of these things really are the prerequisite to having amazing skin later on. And there's no question, you can tell the women in their 40s, even in their 30s, I believe, you can tell the women that are taking care of themselves from within as well as their environmental factors. It's no question. It's very obvious. By the time I would say you're in your mid-30s and well in 40s and 50s, you can tell who's doing the work and who is not. It's very obvious. Adding in with all of that, I also do utilize med skin spa procedures and treatments to also complement the hard work that I do. I am not trying to look younger. I don't ever think of that. And when I hear that, I think it's really sad because we can never be younger. It's not about looking younger. I think it's about looking amazing for where you're at today. So if somebody says to me, you look younger, that's nice. That's a great compliment. But the real compliment is you look amazing where you're at today. That's the whole goal. When I'm 50, I want to look amazing at 50. When I'm 60, I want to look amazing at 60. But you have to put the work in even today to have the results when you're 60. We can't really go back. We can't reverse the clock, but we can look amazing where we're at today. And it really goes with those powerhouse ingredients. It goes with, if the budget allows, complementing that with some in-office skin spa treatments, procedures, whatever, resourcing a good aggressive dermatologist. It's really putting a whole plan together and then executing and following through, making it happen. Don't forget, follow-up video coming up soon where I'm going to talk more about the medical grade skincare products that I'm using and the things that I'm saving my money on. I will also include more details on the procedures and treatments that I am doing in office. I have a lot of videos. I have videos on fillers. I have videos on Botox, hydrofacial, you name it. I share it all. No shame in my game. Just wanting to look great where I am today, just as you do as well. All right, comments, suggestions. Let me know what you would like to see. I'm always here and happy to oblige to anything that you want as far as content from my channel. Thank you, ladies. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Take care.